Kwana back again with another Her Real review. So glad to see you guys. It is another week and another episode of The Handmaid's Tale, Season 5, Episode 3, entitled Border. Guys, this was such a good episode for really not a lot to have happened. It feels like there wasn't really a lot of things that happened in the episode. It was more of like an information, kind of moving chess pieces on the board type of episode. But it was such a good episode. Lots of lighthearted moments in comparison to the last 2 weeks. I really enjoyed this episode of The Handmaid's Tale, and I really love the writing of this episode. I feel like the last 2 weeks were a little lighter on dialogue. We certainly had a lot more dialogue in episode 2 than episode 1. This was a very dialogue heavy episode, not a lot of like silent, still panning of the shots, up close facial expression moments, which those are nice when they happen, but this was just such a good episode. And I'm going to be spoiling it all for you today. So do me a favor and make sure that you have watched the episode or that you are fully okay with being spoiled. And do me a favor and hit the subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up, because you want to support. If you love Handmaid's Tale like I love Handmaid's Tale, then you definitely want to support me over here so I can keep bringing you guys reviews. I do not get screeners yet until we grow the channel a little bit more. I can't get screeners. So I'm giving you these reviews as soon as I get a chance to see them, which is usually when everyone has had a chance to see them. So definitely come back, see me again and again and again each week. I love to talk about the show. And jump into the comments, guys. Jump into the comments. This is a dialogue. Let me know what you thought about the episode. Let me know what your favorite moment of the night was. Such a good episode. So let me get started. I'm going to go ahead and cue you up to, like, in case you haven't seen it, or just in case you want a reminder of like what happened last week. So last week, Serena held her state funeral for Fred, aka he who should not be named, unironically, since that's his brother. And in the state funeral, we also got a chance to see Hannah, little grown-up 12-year-old Hannah, handing Serena some flowers, and she is in this purple color. I really wish that they had chosen, obviously they went with like a darker purple, kind of a plum kind of color, because it is a funeral, it's more muted, but it was really hard to see that purple. It really didn't pop. So I really wish that they had found a way to make it pop, just because the colors of Gilead, the colors Gilead uses, are just so significant, so important, and I just felt like they really didn't pop as much. So when they kept referring to her as purple, I was like, oh, that was purple, because child, I thought it was blue. I thought it was like a navy blue. But when we pick up on this episode, June is still, it literally picks up right after all of that happened. She's sitting on the couch staring at a photo like my baby girl, in shock, and Luke comes out and is like, are you okay? No, she's not okay. You not okay. None of this is okay. Like, she just got a chance to see her baby, and it's almost like you want to know that they're okay, but seeing them so close to people who are so evil is like a reminder that they are somewhere where they should not be. And she is just shook, but more importantly, she's just like, what is this color? Like, what does this purple mean? And Moira comes in, because Moira's seen it too, and Moira's in shock because that's her little god baby. And she's like, I don't know what that color is, but obviously she's not a little girl anymore because she's not in pink, and she's a big girl now. In my mind, I was like, what that color means. That obviously means she's not a baby anymore. She's not in pink. You know what this means. It means that she's growing up. It's not a good thing that she's in purple. But I digress. During her conversation with Moira, Moira's like, she's like, I need to call Nick. I need to find out if my child is okay. How can I call Nick? Because I can't call him from Tuello's office because Tuello's not here. He's obviously in America escorting Serena like she's the queen. And so Moira's like, oh, well, there's a group of women at the border, and I've heard they've had some success getting messages out to people, but they're kind of like crazed radical rebels, women. And June goes off. June is like, why did you not tell me? Like, I get it, but it's the entitlement. It's the entitlement for me, okay? It's the feeling like she should know every minute, or that she would even be able to know. Like, Moira don't know what you don't know. I mean, she probably could figure it out. And Moira's like, I didn't want to tell you because you already snapping, doing some crazy stuff. I didn't want to do that to you. And so they decide to go to meet up with these women at the border, and they meet up with Lily, and Lily ends up being one of the women that June exchanged Fred for. So, June's like, oh, I wish I would have done it sooner. Like, hey, nice to meet you. And Lily is just so impressed with June. Like, you're this mythical woman. I thought you would be taller. I like the idea that they're setting up this idea of her legacy, just because, like, in the books, that's kind of like, we don't really know much about June, because everything that's happening now in the book is not in the show, is not in the book. But it's this idea that she left behind this legacy, and she's leaving behind this legacy. So she's like, oh, I thought you would have been taller. Oh, what you did with like Angel's Fight or whatever. And June is very dismissive of it, and she says this great line. Lily tells her this great line of like, where women always are like dismissive. I wish I could find the quote, but it's like, women are always dismissive when they've done something great. And it's like, why do we do that? We always have to like dim our light and really like tear down what we've done, because we don't want people to think that we're proud. We want to be humble, but it's almost like being fake humble. It's not even humble bragging. It's just being fake humble, because yeah, you did that, girl. You saved all them 76 children in Martha's, and you rescued these 20 women. Like, you orchestrated all of that. June is a hot mess. I also think that this was necessary, because even someone like me, I get frustrated with June. Sometimes I forget all the good things that June has done and has accomplished. And June has done a lot of good things. She does some messy things, but she has done a lot of good things. They go back. She sees all these women and all these people that these people are rescuing, and she finds out that this is Mayday. And this takes us right back to season 1, season 2 with Mayday, and hearing about Mayday, but thinking that Mayday was just something on the inside that they were doing amongst them, and it wasn't necessarily an outside force. And she finds out that Mayday is everywhere, and it's just this, like, you could just see this glow come upon her, like, we thought this was something that was just a figment of our imagination. And the idea that I got these women out and we were Mayday and there was no more Mayday, but you guys are still working on the inside. I don't think she really knew that there were still people working on the inside to help the women. And so you could just see her light up, and I love that moment. So Moira and June help sew together some outfits. They're sewing up outfits, and they're sewing maps and things into the outfits so that they don't get caught with maps. And one of the women brings over some arsenic, and this is going to be important, because she's like, oh, we're going to try to take out a DC commander sometime next week with this arsenic. Arsenic is a messy way to go. Speaking of arsenic, if you haven't seen Flowers in the Attic, you should see Flowers in the Attic. I don't know anything about the new one on Lifetime, so I like the original TV version, or movie version with Christy Swanson, but I was a big reader of the books when I was a kid, so Flowers in the Attic, it'll tell you about that arsenic. And then all of a sudden you hear this shouting, and there's this guard, and he's there with a gun, and the women are about to shoot him down, and then this girl runs out, and they named Rachel, and it's one of their women, and he has helped her and get out, because the main guy, I guess, who was supposed to be running, couldn't do it. And so they find out that they have like this other guy on the inside, and you can see the light bulbs go off inside of June's head. I said it last week. I even probably said it the week before then. With the absence of Alexis Bledel and them writing in her storyline as though she has gone back to Gilead to help kind of like get to Aunt Lydia, or to get revenge, or what have you, They're, of course, making space for Alexis Bledel's character to come back if she ever wants to come back. But also, they're setting up all this foreshadowing around the idea that June is going to go back to Gilead. Mark my words, this is not a spoiler. I don't have screeners. June is going to go back to Gilead. We're going to see that before the end of the season. I would say probably even the season finale. I'm just saying. But eventually she does get to call Nick, and Nick tells her that the color purple signifies that Hannah is growing up and that she's ready to be trained to be a wife. Now, hopefully they would not marry her off at like 14 or 15, but we do know that Esther was a whole behind child and she was married off. We also know that Nick was married to a whole behind child in Sydney Sweeney when she showed up on the show as Eden. So Gilead is not above marrying off children, but she is the daughter of a commander, so one would hope that maybe they wouldn't marry her off quite so young, like maybe her father would have some pull and make her wait at least until she's like 18 or so. That's a scary thought, the idea that she's going to be trained to be a wife, especially being that girls aren't allowed to read or really have like a formal education in Gilead. So all the things that they're learning are things like sewing. Are they even learning how to cook? I mean, maybe like the basics, but like most of the commanders are going to have Marthas, so they are probably just learning how to make the basics. Like, what do you do with 12 years of education when all you're learning how to be is a wife? You're not even learning how to balance finances or doing any of the things that women would have been doing prior to this, because you're not even allowed to read anymore. So that's super, super scary that that's what she's going to be doing. And June is like literally about to have a meltdown. Probably the most important thing that came out of their conversation is he tells her that he is married. He tells her about his wife, Rose. And it's almost like this is their goodbye. Like, I don't think we're going to get a lot of June and Nick moments, at least for quite a few episodes, because Nick is trying to do right, it seems like, by his wife. His wife seems to understand his feelings for June. Maybe even his wife knows a little bit more. You know, she's devout, but we don't really know the nuances of that. We also don't know if he's going to be required to have a handmaid. Martha, like, we don't know anything about what's going on in Nick Blaine's household. But it really felt like a goodbye moment. Like, we won't hear or see the two of them together much. And Nick's character's kind of been like that throughout the show, where we would have him for a couple of weeks and he would go away for large swatches of time. Maybe he's filming movies or whatever. But I suspect that we maybe won't see quite as much as Nick. If anything, what we will see of Nick would be probably in relation to Commander Lawrence. So that kind of wraps up like the June Mayday storyline. I know that was a lot. The Aunt Lydia storyline is pretty simple. Esther's alive, but she's in the hospital, pretty much in a coma. Janine is alive, in the hospital, in a coma. And then Aunt Lydia is shook because Janine is her baby. But like, she goes in the room and she smacks the snot out of Janine, little comatose body. Y'all, I mean, I did not want to laugh. First of all, I laughed. Lord forgive me, I laughed. Because it was funny, because you're literally slapping a woman who's in a coma. But also because in Aunt Lydia's like sick, warped mind, that what she did was probably completely logical. Like, she's like almost like that scene in What's Love Got to Do with It, where Ike is like talking to Tina in the hospital and talking about some, like, if you die, I'm gonna kill you or whatever. It's on some trippy mess like that. Like, it's just such a toxic, abusive woman. She just really is. But eventually she prays the most intense, bizarre prayer ever. The fact that these people think that they are somehow like anointed and blessed of God with all of the evils that they do is beyond me. But she is at a moment of like crisis of consciousness, and I'm hoping, even though I don't know that I'll ever really like Aunt Lydia, I'm hoping that this is about to start her hero's journey. Like, this is going to start her arc of trying to actually help these women and not really just serve herself. But eventually she gets in contact with Mrs. Putnam, who brings in baby Charlotte to come and kiss on Janine and try to let Janine hear her so she'll wake up. And then the next morning Janine does wake up and she's in the wheelchair, and of course Aunt Lydia is ecstatic. So we'll see what this does to Aunt Lydia, because she prayed that she was going to do right, that she was going to become a better person, and God saved Janine. So you need to start becoming a better person, and becoming a better person is not training women to be raped ceremoniously. I'm sorry, it's just not. But Janine got 9 lives. I tell you, Janine is the most like tortured, near death dying person on this show. At some point in time, we're gonna have a conversation, Bruce Miller, in case you see this video, about why you keep wanting to torture Janine like that, because that is my girl. I love Janine. Okay, one of my best friends' names is Janine. I feel some kind of way that you keep doing this to Janine. Let Janine just live. Let Janine just live her best life, please, because this is just too much what she's been through. She's just been through too much. She almost drowned in the milk last episode, got blown up. I mean, just too much. It's too much. And then finally we get to the Serena storyline, which is, I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. One, I feel like the Gilead episodes, because there's the pageantry of it all, it allows you to kind of disassociate from just how horrific everything is at times. And then the pure ridiculousness of Serena Joy is just, mwah, it's just chef's kiss. It's the best thing ever. She keeps harping on the fact that, like, Fred was due respect. And I'm going to come back to that idea, because there's a reason I think she keeps saying that, and it didn't have anything at all to do with Fred. But she's talking to Tuello. She's like, yeah, finally Fred is getting his respect that he's due, and the commanders are going to listen to me. And I think Tuello is kind of, like, starting to, like, sense that something is a little squirrely with her, like the way, like, she's too concerned with how Gilead views her, and she wants their respect and all of these things. And so they're looking through the flowers that she's been sent, and there are some flowers from Commander Broderick, who is a DC commander. I can't help but wonder if he is the commander who took Commander Winslow's place, you know, Commander Stabler, when Christopher Maloney's guest starred on the show back in season 2, I think. But that takes us back to the arsenic, right? Because, or this actually detail came earlier in the show, you know, but by the time you get to the arsenic and the DC commander, you realize that the arsenic is meant probably for the guy who sent her the flowers. How that storyline is going to come back, either to Mayday or even to Serena, it'll be very interesting to see that play out. And then Serena goes to dinner at the Lawrences. Poor Tuello, they like, no, you can't eat. You gotta wait outside. Like, you just dropped her off. Like, you're just her Uber. So he can't eat. He can't ever be a part of anything. But, you know, I'm not feeling Tuello anymore, and that's my boy. I love me some Sam Yeager, but that's my boy. But I'm not feeling him. He's too stuck on Serena. He need to let her go. He need to let it go, because she's just not the one. She's crazy. So this dinner is interesting because you have Commander Mackenzie, who is Hannah's, I don't even want to call them foster parents, okay, or adopted parents. They're her handlers, okay, and she's being called Agnes now, which is such an ugly name. Forgive me if your name is Agnes in real life, but it's just weird that is her name. But they're there. Nick is there, so Serena is like shooketh that Nick is married and she's meeting the wife. And I feel like there's a reason why I feel like we're supposed to know who Rose is, and I can't place her. So if you, in the comments, if you know who Rose is supposed to be, let me know, please. And then Lawrence, of course, is there. And they're talking about June, the fact that they know that June killed Fred, which is shocking, but they planted off on the Americans. Of course, we on the inside know that Lawrence is feeding just enough information of truth to not get caught up in a lie. But of course, we know that Nick and Lawrence were apart, were working with the Americans, and they're just trying to hide in plain sight. Much respect to that. And then at the dinner, they start talking about things like, well, I think first and foremost, I don't know if you got vibes. I got vibes that Rose must have been married to a commander before. I don't know. It was just weird, the vibes that I got, that I figured that might have been what happened. And maybe her commander had died. And then she got married off to Nick. She certainly is older than his other wives, so that is an interesting thing, especially for him being like a fairly young man. Maybe he has some choice in that, or maybe them marrying for love because he didn't want to get married off to another young girl. But this seems to sow a seed into Serena's warped mind that, like, she needs to get married again to get back to Gilead. We hear the topic of marriage come up again with Lawrence because Lawrence is rambling on about stuff nobody cares about. And Serena's like, oh, when you get married again, your wife will help steer the conversation. And he's like, I'm not getting married again. Like, I was married to the love of my life. She went for Cocoa Puffs. And now I'm not getting married anymore. And Commander McKenzie's like, we don't have a place for a single man in leadership. So yeah, you're going to get married again. So now we're going to have to see how is Lawrence going to get out of this, because now the pressure is going to be on him to get married again. And then also that brings to light the whole Nick and Rose situation, where the pressure is going to be on him to produce another child. So can Rose have kids? We don't know. We don't know if she has working ovaries or not. And if she doesn't, does that mean he's going to have to get a handmaid? Things are going to start getting sticky when they have to start bringing in these storylines and start showing that these men who have been on the good guy side for a long time but are so entangled in this crazy world of Gilead that it's going to impact them in that way. And then everybody leaves, and after dinner, and then Serena starts like trying to put her Mac game on to Lawrence, talking about how she misses his wife and she liked his wife, and he was like, oh, well, she didn't like you. And then like talking about Fred and how Fred was a weak man, and he's like, yeah, he was toxic masculinity or whatever, because of course Lawrence is like supposed to be the opposite of that. But they're bashing Fred, and this made me think back to this line that Serena keeps saying about like Fred being due the respect. It's definitely not about Fred. She could care 2 lumps of sugar honey iced tea about Fred, okay? What she cares about is her. Fred was her think piece. Fred was her mouthpiece, excuse me. And she was the one behind the veil coming up with all the big ideas. So she wants Fred to get respect because she feels that she, in all of her sacrifices and everything that she's done for Gilead, deserve and earn respect. And this is where all of this comes to fruition, like the idea that she wants to be back in Gilead. She does not want to go where she's not really wanted, where her life is at risk. She wants to be safe in Gilead. She's scared of June. And this is the world she helped build. She's not ready to give that up yet. So she starts putting Lawrence's hand on her belly so he can feel the baby kick and all this other weird stuff. And then we see basically her go back to her hotel room with Tuello, telling him that he needs to leave, telling him that she's staying. And the idea that she can just stay, that like she's not a political prisoner anymore. I guess I had forgotten that basically she's not, because they didn't really convict her of anything, which is crazy to me, that you literally sat there and held down another woman while she was raped, and you're like, oh yeah, you're free to go, you're free to lollygag and do whatever. And now she's on Gilead soil, so he can't do anything. He's just like, okay, well, I wish you would make a better decision other than coming back to this place where it's illegal for you to read, and you can't do anything, and you have no power, and you can't smoke cigarettes, and you don't know what's going to happen. They might take your baby. They might turn you into a handmaid. We don't know. The commanders call a meeting, and so Serena decides she's going to stay in Gilead, and she goes to the meeting only to find out that they are not honoring her with a place in Gilead. They want her gone. They want her out of there. Lawrence basically is like, we don't have the infrastructure for an unusual woman to live within our borders. So they're going to make her an unofficial global ambassador, basically like, oh, look, I'm pregnant. Look at what Gilead produces babies. Look at what we do over here. She is not happy. And I think she asked for staff, she asked for money, she asked for security. I'm guessing that literally twofold. She's afraid that June will find a way to get to her if she is not in Gilead. And she loses her influential power within Gilead structure. She wants to be connected to another commander so that she can funnel out ideas and help Gilead run, because she is the brainchild that put all of this together. It's so disgusting. And I was just like, yes, you're not getting what you wanted. I can't wait to see what this does, because we know that she kind of like gets lauded outside. Like, she's had this group of women that are like idolizing her. So how this is going to impact when she leaves Gilead is just so interesting. But ultimately, she does go back to Canada, shows back up the plane. Tuel's like, oh, they had us hold the plane for you. And he gives her this look and he sits down. Like, I hope that he now realizes he's been getting played big time. It's time for him to up the ante. It's time for him to like turn the heat, get with girl June and help her to take down Gilead. Stop sniffing around Serena, because Serena's gonna keep playing you. She's gonna keep playing you like a fiddle. Let her go. And then when she gets back to Canada, eventually she goes, her driver drives down this road and gets to June, right? And is like, June is there and it's like, don't stay away from my daughter. Don't you put your hands on my daughter. I so wish she would have thought that out better, to where she could have taken her out in that moment. But if she took Serena out now, we wouldn't have a show. We need a face to be the face of villainy for Gilead, for June. And yes, there's those other commanders and whatnot, but ultimately that's not personal enough. My theory is that we're not going to see Serena taken down until the very end of the show. Like, even at best, if it was the end of this season, going into next season, who would be the new villain of Gilead? Or is there somebody that we're going to be attached to enough to care about them being the new villain? I mean, ultimately, it is the men of Gilead who are going to come down, but the satisfaction of everything is not going to happen until we get June and Serena, woman or whatever, like fisticuffs going at it at the end. So this was just a really good episode. But like I said, it's really setting up for June to go back into Gilead as a rebel, as a spy, to try and rescue more women, and to rescue Hannah, because that is who June is at her core. That is who she has become. She truly has become her mother's daughter. It's setting up for them to be back in the same territory so that they can have that matchup. Hopefully Moira gets to, they get to have some type of like peacemaking moment, reconciliation, and hopefully, I don't know. I don't even know if I want Aunt Lydia to become kind of like a hero spy figure. Because I don't like Aunt Lydia. And Dow just plays her so well that I hate her so good. I hate her so good. And then of course Lawrence. The pressure is going to be on Nick and Lawrence, because they are treading closely. The episode 4 premiere is out on Hulu. It looks interesting. It looks good. It looks intense. I really feel like, I don't know, like I feel like each episode is just getting more and more intense, and I am not ready for it. So this was a really good episode. I would give this episode I like this episode a lot. I would give this episode a 9 out of 10. Yeah, an A rating. A rating for this episode, guys. Let me know down in the comments, what was your favorite OMG moment of the episode? And low-key, do you think at some point Serena and Lawrence may have to make a matchup, a power marriage? He said those don't always work, but when the heat is on, is that going to happen? What's going to happen? Let me know down below in the comments what you think, and I'll see you guys next week, okay? Until then, toodles.